TV party tonight! Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews. Don't want to talk about anything else. We don't want to know. We're dedicated to our favorite shows. Everybody watch his photos. Scary Dog. Pearson and Blurnsville. Futurama.
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting Premier Podcast TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is Lucifer, brought to you by the good people at Netflix, who rescued it from Fox after it had been canceled. So far, they've done Season 4, which aired May 8th, 2019, the first half of Season 5, which aired August 21st, 2020, and now here we are, back again, my friends, for the story that never ends. May 28th, 2021, they drop another 8 episodes, finishing Season 5 with a total of 16. One more season, and then they're all done. They're closing up shop on here. Joining me tonight to continue our discussion of Lucifer, this time everyone can hear me, so I'm back on the show. Hello, me. Hello, you. But we also have back Andrew Graham, who, when no one could hear me and my jaw was aching and having all kinds of problems, stepped into the breach and hosted our previous review of seasons 1 through 5A. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing very good, Mark. And ladies and gentlemen, do not make any mistakes here. Mark Radulich is a person who will do a podcast with a broken freaking jaw.
Yes, I will. My goal in life is to podcast my own funeral. I'm gonna rise from my casket. I'm gonna go, hello, you are witnessing a Radulich and Broadcasting funeral, and just, there we go. And I'll have my son.
Will Winfrey be pallbearer?
Absolutely. Oh yes, he will.
Mark will actually no-sell death.
And then there'll be my son doing an alternative commentary over it, his Robin Williams-esque style of rampant comedy. Speaking of rampant comedy, ladies and gentlemen, a woman who just can't say no to me, and those are a rare breed. A rare breed that I especially like, but a rare breed nonetheless. She's already been on one podcast with me today, and she's back again for seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexis Hejna, how do you do, madam?
See, I'm actually predicting that at your funeral, we're going to have a thing where we're going to set up a sign and say, if you've always wanted to kick the crap out of Mark, step on up. And for $5, we'll let him kick your coffin.
I don't know if you've ever seen, I think it's Amazon Women on the Moon, the skit where at the funeral, Harvey dies, and his funeral is actually like an old school Dean Martin roast. That's what I want.
Oh, okay. You want to go Rochester Rabbit on this?
Yep, I'm gonna have. I'll have either Jesse or Robert or Winfrey MC the thing. I'll have my wife and my kids right up there up front, and I'll have all you guys at the dais with your prepared bits of comedy about me. That's how I want to go out. All right. When we last left our hero, speaking of death, Michael, who is Lucifer's twin brother, had come down from heaven to make a mess of things. He had been imitating Lucifer for a while, and then Lucifer figured it out, and Lucifer slashed up his face. And he went away for a while, and then he came back, and they had a big old sissy slap fight in the police station, which then caused God himself to intervene, and that is where we left off with Season 5A. Picking things back up from where we started it, time has stopped. God has intervened and said, hey, you two, knock that shit off. So here we go. Everything is coming up Lucifer. Wait, I'm in the wrong season.
Family dinner.
Yes. There we go. Yeah. Family dinner. God arrives just in time to stop fighting, telling Lucifer, Michael, and Amendiel to reconcile, and inviting all of them to a family dinner, which enrages Lucifer and shocks everyone. Meanwhile, Chloe feels that she may have rushed Lucifer into confessing his love for her, because it's only been 5 seasons. So she decides to give him some space. Maze drops by to meet God, and she asks for a soul, because Maze always needs something. But he refuses to give her one, because that's Maze's lot in life, enraging her into leaving, as she is wont to do. Lucifer and the others arrive at the dinner at Linda's house, but it quickly evolves into a heated argument between Lucifer and Michael until God finally raises his voice to stop it. Like Gandalf. Lucifer leaves, frustrated with his father. Not long later, for reasons unknown, God banishes Michael from Earth. Later, Lucifer talks to Cleo and tells her that he cannot say that he loves her because he feels that due to him being so much like his father, it would be a lie. I'll start with you, Andrew. Picking up where things left off, what did you think of this first episode?
Really solid start to the season. Half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
As teased at the end, we did have Dennis Haysbert come in as God himself, and he brings that gravitas to the character. I was a big fan of him when he was in another series called The Unit for a number of years, and he plays that really well. We continue to have great interplay between Tom Ellis playing Lucifer and Tom Ellis playing Michael. I think the highlight of this episode is probably that dinner scene where they do go through and they hash out all of the various family issues and as far as he's come, still a lot of Lucifer's insecurities, his issues with his father, his issues with Michael, his issues with the Menadil. It kind of gets into that stage of where whenever families get together, the various members kind of slide back into whatever role they generally have. I think everybody does that. And just a really solid start, and also kind of starting the key drama of the season between Lucifer and Chloe on whether or not Lucifer actually thinks he has the capacity to love.
I have to say, and I'll say this now, to get it out of the way, and it kind of, for me, it was kind of the theme of this season. I feel like when you guys talked about it a couple of months back in October, I said 4 was super strong, and I kind of feel like they needed to wrap this up, like they're running out of story. And specifically what I mean by that, and Alexis, you can weigh in on this and then give your own thoughts about season 1. I feel like Lucifer is kind of running in circles now. I feel like a lot of Lucifer's emotional growth has stalled, and we're seeing a lot of repeat with him. And I feel like now we're into him, where the writing itself is repeating and just sort of rearranging deck chairs. It's a solid show, don't get me wrong, and it's entertaining. I just feel like we're getting to that point, if we haven't already gotten there, that the story is told. Wrap it up. And yet they keep going.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. The show, nobody wants a show to overplay its welcome, and this has been going on for 5 seasons, and I love this show. I absolutely love watching this show. I love these characters. I have yet to watch a show that didn't make me laugh at least once. But it's probably good that they're starting to move in the direction that they are.
Agreed. There's plenty of shows that I've watched where I've loved the characters, I've enjoyed the show. I was not unhappy to see it go. And I feel like I just, there's too much of a trend in television and movies where they tend to overstay their welcome. And I'd rather them go out on a high note than stay too long and the whole thing kind of goes off a cliff. That was the whole premise of Long Road to Ruin, in terms of movie franchises. Andrew, anything else about episode Family Dinner, or you want to move on?
I got to that I absolutely love Dennis Haysbert as God. I actually was first introduced to him when he played the president on 24, and he was one of my favorite reoccurring characters. He has this ability, and I think it's a lot to do with his presence and his voice. He is both calming and loving, but when he's angry, you're not kidding about the whole Gandalf thing, especially considering that a storm brews in, so it is, very much so copy and paste from the scene when Gandalf starts threatening Bilbo in one of the earlier scenes of Fellowship.
I am not some common robber.
You're a conjurer.
Right.
Yeah, but he does. I remember when we discussed this last time. I remember couples were saying that we had Neil Gaiman do a voiceover as God in an earlier episode, and we're like, oh, couldn't they have brought Gaiman back? But Haysbert is so good in this role. You know, you have no qualms believing he's God. You really don't. It's kind of like when Morgan Freeman played him in Bruce Almighty. It's like, yeah, I could definitely see this.
For sure.
Yeah, and I've got to say, I think going to Haysbert, and maybe we turn this into a mini God conversation right now in terms of the character. No holes opening up in the basement to swallow me whole, but from everything that I think they had a tricky thread to weave in terms of how frustrating God must have been, given everything that Lucifer described about his relationship with him. And I think for the fact of this series, I think they actually nailed the writing of the character to definitely get you to that place where it's like, oh my God. And I also dug all of those jokes of people having to use the phrase, oh my God. But writing a character who was infuriating and who was cryptic in a lot of cases and things like that. Probably the other thing, and Mark, I think I'm probably on the same line with you where I think the show's definitely starting to show some of its length. I think this is the season that I could not care less for any case of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only one that hit it for me, I can't even remember which episode it was in. It's when they had basically Chloe actually turn around and say, wait a second, Lucifer's using this to work out his personal issues. And it's like, that's a little too fourth wall there, guys.
I should also add, the one who gets the stellar acting for this episode, Rachel Harris, who plays Linda, because the whole family dinner scene, first of all, is perfect as it is. But the fact is that you have God and three angels, and you throw in a therapist who didn't want to be there. I love that she tries to get out. She's like, no, this is a family thing. And God's like, no, you're the mother of my grandchild. Of course you can join us. And even Amenity was like, I know you were so close to getting out. And she tries to give and she's like, thank you. She's like, oh, thank you, God. And she just suddenly realizes the minute those words are out of her mouth, like, oh, wow, how stupid does that sound now? And that's actually kind of funny because you just suddenly realize, this goes back to our chilling adventures of Sabrina. You know, we complain about every time they said, oh, Satan, or oh, Lucifer, or something like that. It's like, well, you realize how many times you say, oh, God, oh, Jesus, oh, Lord. You know, you say those kind of things a lot more than you think.
Andrew,
and it's just and Lynn's kind of dealing with that, and she was so good at it because I just love how she's just like stuck in the ultimate awkward position and she cannot get out.
Andrew, on the subject of God and fatherhood, I wanted to quick pitch this to you. One of the things that jumped out to me, and then we'll move on to that next episode. The idea of nobody gives you an instruction booklet on how to parent your kid.
Oh, God, no.
and even though, even if you have grandparents, your parents in the picture to help guide you, ultimately they go home and you're left alone with said child. And you really do have to create, a family culture in which to raise the children. The things that you do in the home to provide for them and all of that. And here's where I'm going with this. At one point, God, what's the actor's name again?
Dennis Haysbert.
Dennis Haysbert. Dennis Haysbert talks about later on in the season about Lucifer's perception of him, as being cryptic and standoffish and hands off. And he talks about that. He was like, I'm God. I can't be too much interfering in people's lives, including my own children. And I struggled with where the line was. And you don't have to be God to struggle with how much to get involved with your children in terms of guiding them and when to back off. I know, like, you guys see, I'm always like, social mediaing with my kids and posting pictures and funny things that they say or whatever. And I'm an involved parent, and I do stuff with them all the time. But there's always a part of me that's like, okay, back off, let them go play, let them go do their own thing, let them, and it's hard because like you wanna be involved, but you also have to give them breathing room, and no one tells you where that line is. And certainly that's what God is alluding to when he talks about struggling with that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, no. Oh my God, proving our point. But anyway, we just went through that this weekend with our daughter. We had new neighbors moved in, and they have a girl about my daughter's age, and they took off to the park a couple of times, and that was the first time we had let that happen, and it went really well every time. She handled it like a champ, but it's like that is a big moment, and I think it was interesting on how the series framed that, because I'm trying to remember the conversation you heard, but the one I heard was the one where he was basically saying, it's like, well, no, I was giving you guys your own agency to do things, and look at everything that Lucifer had accomplished without that extra direction. And well, maybe being banished to hell isn't that much of an accomplishment, but what can you do some days?
Yeah, it's later on in the season, and it stands out to me because so much of this season is Lucifer being mad at his father and interpreting his father's behavior a certain way. It's informed the entire season. It's informed the entire series up to this point. Sure. And when they have, I think he might actually be talking to Lucifer at one point about this, and he was like, at some point, maybe maybe I backed off too much. Maybe I gave you too much agency, but it's hard, especially when you're me. And I really related to that point. Like, I'm not saying I'm in any way, shape, or form, God, I am as fallible as any human being on this planet. But the idea of it, I very much related to.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you bring up fallibility, because I think that was very much a theme in the show, not only from a celestial point of view, but also from a character point of view of and we finally got payoff to this, but what Lucifer always wanted God to do was apologize. And it took basically the arc of that season to get him to do so. Right.
And he also wanted his father to tell him that he loved him. It's a big part of what informs his relationship with Chloe is, I am incapable of love because my father never told me he loved me, and so I cannot love you, which I real quick, Alexis, that made me want to put my head through the wall, because the illogic of it all, and it struck me as hackneyed writing. Like, they are reaching out for reasons for Chloe and Lucifer to not be together, and I just hated it.
Yeah, that's the other reason why I'm glad the series is wrapping up. As much fun as a will they, won't they romantic subplot in a story arc can be, this has gone on far enough. It's like, okay, we know you two love each other. We know you're going to end up together. For the love of all that is you, stop doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, this is... Go ahead, Andrew.
I was about to say, I actually went the other way on that one, where I actually enjoyed that. I thought that was a kind of a true to character thing where, as frustrating as it was, and yeah, I think the will they, won't they detective and partner thing trope on TV has got to be taken out back and shot. But I think in this case it kind of works, because again, it goes back to Lucifer never having really had feelings, not knowing how to interpret them either. And I thought there was something where, as a way of manifesting his trauma, where, and I've heard this with interviews with people who did have it, where it's like, my father did this. Am I able to then do that for my own kids, and things along that line?
All right, let's move on to episode 10, Bloody Celestial Karaoke Jam. So I was...
Can someone just give whoever came up with that name, that title, an award?
Especially if any of us can say it in an English accent. It's a Bloody Celestial Karaoke Jam.
So, So I tend to have our MCU fun chat on mute, especially when, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and before that WandaVision started, because you guys will all talk about them extemporaneously, and Robert and I binge at the end. This time it was, and I never mute our network chat, but this time you guys started talking about Lucifer. I'm like, God damn, well, you did, Andrew. They're talking about Lucifer. I'm like, God damn it. And the first words out of your mouth were, well, it didn't take long to get to the musical episode. I don't care. I don't care what you say. I love this episode. This might have been my favorite of the season. This was fantastic. You know what it reminded me of, Alexis? You brought it up. You just brought it up, but a different reference to the same show. When Sabrina does the Mickey song. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, not to mention, I love the reason they give for the musical episode. That's always the catalyst. Nearly every show nowadays has a musical episode, but you have to explain why you have a musical episode. And I love this idea. The fact is that when God, literal God, is near humans, they start bursting into song and dance without even realizing it. And you know what? I believe that. I could see that happening. And just Tom Ellis, oh my God. First of all, props to everyone who turns out are all amazing singers.
Yeah.
In this episode. We've heard Tom Ellis sing before, so we knew he was awesome. But yeah, everyone else just blew me away with how talented they were.
The actress who plays Ella, I hope she gets work until she no longer wants to. She's probably my favorite actor on this entire show. She is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually listening to the I actually have that episode on. I have the No Scrub scene on right now.
So the synopsis goes like this. God decides to stay on Earth to further understand Lucifer and his life, but his presence causes people to burst into song and dance without warning. By the way, Dennis Haysbert sort of, just sheepishly grinning and like, I'm not here, I'm not involved, I'm just watching, never got old to me. There's a lot that gets old in this show, but that never did.
Ask, what was your guys' favorite song in this episode? It maybe doesn't even have to be your absolute favorite song of all of them, but just the best musical sequence. What was your favorite?
The one that stands out to me is the one on the football field. I don't even remember what the song is anymore. But
it was Under Pressure.
The Dust.
Okay.
No, another one Bites the Dust. Sorry, wrong Queen song.
All right. Well, that would be why it stuck out. That would be why it's jumping out to me. First of all, love Queen. Did you see Bohemian Rhapsody, Andrew?
You know what? I finally saw it a couple weeks ago.
Did you like it?
I generally enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, God knows Rami Malek was Freddie Mercury, but yeah, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, so did I. Apparently wildly inaccurate. Brian Last on the Jim Cornette show kind of did a 5-minute review of it in mid-conversation and was like, boy, none of that happened the way that they said it in the movie. But my cousin George had a similar comment about Rocket Man, and to both of them I say it's a fucking movie, not a documentary.
Yeah, I actually, the guy that I follow does he basically does historical reviews of adaptations in movies. Basically sits down and goes, okay, so which part of this was accurate, which part of it was fake, and which part of it was incredibly fake. And he said with Bohemian Rhapsody, he said a lot of this did happen, but it happened way out of order.
Yeah,
that's what I've heard as well.
Hey, listen, between Dark Side of the Ring and the A&E biography on the Warrior also couldn't get his story straight, and those were documentaries. So, people tend to fib. Anyway, back to Lucifer. So, yeah, no one is aware of this beyond angels. Lucifer decides to try discussing his problems with God in order to try and get to the root of the problems and improve. Amendiel reveals to Linda that Charlie's just a regular human. While Linda is relieved, Amendiel is upset, citing the fact that angels are better than humans. Angels are better than humans. This causes an argument to emerge between the two of them because Amendiel is an asshole. But they eventually make up when Amendiel understands how they are all imperfect. Duh. Lucifer is frustrated by God's meddling with his life and the constant abrupt singing, but God reveals that he was doing this unintentionally and he's losing control of his powers, which I thought was an interesting twist. All right, so I've talked a lot here. Andrew, did you? The way you phrased it in the chat, I got the impression you didn't particularly love the musical episode.
Oh no, I definitely enjoyed the musical episode.
Okay.
I just didn't really. I was more surprised with where they put it.
Okay, gotcha.
Like in terms of, I figure that's something where you let the story build a little bit before you go for kind of gimmicky episode. And boy, oh boy, do we have a gimmicky episode to talk about in a couple of minutes here. But I pretty thoroughly enjoyed it. I'll probably dispute over the overall singing quality. I think Tom Ellis, absolutely. The actress who plays Ella, absolutely. Dennis Haysbert at the end, absolutely. Some of the other characters, not so great. I will say, though, the dance choreography for this entire episode was on point. So I'll give him credit for that one.
It sure was.
There's a bit of trivia on the IMDb page for this that talks about how the costume designers did did something to Tom Ellis's pants during this. Let's see here. They called it wefting, extra stretch points so he could dance in them without splitting the fabric. And apparently Ellis tore every single pair anyway.
That's a man for you. A real man tears his pants when he dances.
Actually, do you guys want a fun bit of trivia?
Sure.
The whole Lucifer singing thing was never part of the character. Apparently, it was early on in production. They went out for karaoke one night. Tom Ellis got up there. Everyone went, "God damn! Now we're writing him some songs."
That's really funny, actually.
All right, it's kind of funny because it's become the signature piece. You know, one of the signature things about this show. I mean, right before I was watching this, I was watching his performance at Creep from the start of season 4.
Can I let me do a hot take here. I don't love his voice. I think
really,
yeah. I think there are times it's inconsistent. I think there are times he nails it, and then there are times he's a little pitchy dog.
I do love the bit where when he and God are in Linda's office and he's complaining about the singing, and God goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, did I not hear that baritone singing along?" And Lucifer goes, "It was a baritone tenor split."
He's got an amazing falsetto, though. Like for a guy who is in that baritone tenor range, when he can really hit that falsetto.
You know what it might be, Andrew? I might just not like his particular pitch on songs that don't sound that way, if you catch my meaning.
That's fair.
I think sometimes he kind of puts his own stink on a song, and it doesn't sound objectively bad. It's just not my preferred version of that song.
Yeah.
And I think that might be where it's coming from.
I remember he definitely put a couple of different spins on, I want to say it's like season 2 when he did a version of All Along the Watchtower that was a little unexpected, but I think it still worked. In terms of favorite musical bits, I gotta say probably the start and the end, so Wicked Games and I Dreamed a Dream.
Oh, the Wicked Game one is good. That was
really good.
That song.
Yeah, it's funny.
I with the Afterlife because that's actually one of my all-time favorite swing songs. And when
were you like a big Squirrel Nut Zipper fan and all that?
Mark, if this has never come up for, I am a humongous swing and jazz fan. I have a massive collection of swing music.
All right. We're getting you on the Metal Hammer of Doom one of these days to do one of those then.
Yeah, I have a Big Bad Voodoo Daddy poster signed by the whole band.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, and I actually love that song. And I remember when it started getting overplayed, and I was like, "Can I have my hipster moment?" I liked it before it was popular.
Oh God, you had an original Green Day moment.
Yes. No. Oh, and I should have said this episode also gave me my favorite new word: shiggles.
What is
shiggles? For shiggles? Shits and giggles. I just heard that. I'm like, I am adapting that into my vocabulary. That is going to be a new word I'm going to use on a regular basis.
I particularly enjoyed God and Lucifer in Linda's office, though. I will say this: I'm glad they did it. I miss the interactions between Lucifer and Linda. Linda kind of went her own way a few seasons ago, and they never really paired them back up again. They very rarely do a Lucifer-Linda therapy session. Those were my highlights of the early seasons of Lucifer, and they've gotten away from it. And so I was glad they did it here, and it was as good as it's ever been. It was one of my, other than the singing, it was like my favorite part of the episode, and it was a great conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the strengths of this show is the ensemble, and I mean, I can't remember. I want to say it's Rachel Harris.
Yeah, that's
the actress who plays Linda. She is so good. Like, she always just brings in whatever scene she's in.
Yeah, we talked about this in the first episode. I don't know if this was before I cut out, but her and Chloe's faces, mwah, chef's kiss, just perfect.
I did bury my head in the pillow when she and Amenadiel do just the two of us. I'm like, oh god, the accordion.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Probably my least favorite song. The whole Amenadiel storyline in this, I'm glad they took only one episode to resolve it, but the angels are better than people was kind of one of those I wanted to throw my shoe at the television moments.
God, Mark, if you say that one more time, I'm going to write full lyrics to that song. Angels are better than people.
Please do. Add it to the bingo card.
Mark, don't you know it's true?
Hey, I had to sing a version of Cruella de Vil to Robert Winfrey, okay? You got to do this.
Considering, and I mean, Andrew, you've been a fan almost as long as Jesse and Jason. You know for how forever long we were doing the "Do you want to build a snowman" bit.
Do you want to kill the Batman?
Yes, do you want to kill the Batman?
Yes, I do.
Oh, yeah, that's an oldie but a goodie. All right, episode 11, Resting Devil Face. God backpedals from his statement claiming his powers are just on the fritz from arriving on Earth, but Lucifer refuses to believe him after God accidentally blows up Daniel before putting him back together again. Like you do.
That sequence freaked me out. I was just like, what the hell just happened?
God makes himself human in order to better understand Lucifer's life and begins to enjoy the simple mundanities of human life. Chloe is troubled when Trixie goes through a rebellious phase. Later, when God intervenes on a sting operation with Lucifer, he absently reveals that Lucifer is with the police, which caused the drug dealers to panic and hit him. God experiences fear for the first time, and Lucifer becomes enraged at his father being hurt, even revealing his devil face. God is horrified by the devil face as it reveals what Lucifer thinks of himself. Maze learns of God's vulnerability and tries to kill him, but cannot bring herself to do so when she hears him talk about his own flaws and mistakes with Trixie. God later takes his powers back and talks to Maze, thanking her for not killing him and telling her that miracles can happen and that she could potentially obtain a soul. Later on, God talks to Amenadiel and Lucifer, revealing that his problems have been going on for much longer than he intends to retire. I only have one thing to say about this, and then you guys can kick it out a little bit, and then we'll go on to the next one. God talking to Trixie is the best part of this episode. Possibly the best part one of the best parts of this season, like a top 5 moment. That conversation between the two of them was fantastic. The actress who plays Trixie, she's been doing this now for a couple of years, and we've watched her grow up. She's one of the better child actresses I've seen in recent history. It's just a phenomenal bit. Conversely, I'm about over Maze. God, I am a little tired of that character, and if Lucifer is kind of repeating himself and they're just repeating the same shit they've done with Lucifer, they're outright doing the Journey hits of Maze. Like, this character has not had any movement in a few seasons now, and it's always the same thing. I want, I can't, I'm pissed, I get over it. I want, I can't, I'm pissed, I get over it. I want, I can't, I'm pissed, I get over it. And they're like, all right, can we just kill this character? We're going to lose Dan in a few episodes. Can't we have lost Maze, Andrew?
See, I'm on kind of Team Maze for this one. I get a kind of kick out of Leslie Ann Brandt's performance. I mean, she tends to be a little bit more unhinged. She's a fun character. Yeah, I think you're right. She does. You can definitely tell there were a couple places where the writers this season didn't know what to do with people. So they didn't know what to do with Amenadiel. They didn't know what to do with Mazikeen. Well, I'll talk about Dan in a minute. But there is kind of, I do generally enjoy that character quite a bit. She does, I think, when she's in the right mode, she's probably one of the most fun characters on the show, but I don't think this was her in the right mode. Like, I think, when you go back to her when she became a bounty hunter for the first time, it was fantastic.
Oh, it was. Totally.
And then it's like they have definitely thrown her into a little bit of a cycle here, but my fingers crossed payoff is that there's a problem with Maze that then brings in, I believe the actor's name is Matt Ryan as Constantine.
Oh, I'm like, go more into detail about that. What are you talking about?
So, I never actually saw all of it, but I did see the clip. So, Crisis on Infinite Earths, the big crossover thing. So, there's actually a Lucifer cameo in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember they were trying to save that as an absolute surprise, and it got someone spilled the beans right before the show aired. And they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yes, Tom." So somebody basically caught a glimpse of Tom Ellis on set, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and from what so I've watched the scene a few times, but I guess the exchange between Constantine and Lucifer, one, they don't like each other, which is hilarious, and in the scene, it's like 2 minutes long, but they bounce right off each other really well, so I think that'd be fun for an episode. But he said, "Remember I helped you out with Maze?" So there's some inference that at some point there was a problem with Maze, and Constantine helped out, and I just enjoy that take on the character, and it'd be a lot of fun to have him come in.
Your thoughts on this episode, Alexis?
I absolutely love Dennis Haysbert playing the goofy dad. Again, I mean, you get the freaking scene where he's, drinking a Slurpee while they're examining, the murder weapon. And he's just talking about, it's like, "I'm sorry, but it's so good." And he gets his first brain freeze. And then he has to go to the freaking bathroom, and Lucifer has to take, it's like, "I need to take my millennium-year-old father to the little boy's room." A great line. Yeah, I wasn't happy with Maze actually at the end of the first half of this season. How easily Michael was able to sway her over to his side because he said he could get her a soul, and frankly, I'm glad that part of the story got cut very fast. I really didn't want Maze to suddenly turn evil because she thought that because Michael, we all know, was lying to her.
Yeah, I just the writing on the show in general kind of swings back and forth between really, really good and on point and insightful and really, really hackneyed. Like, I think that was my utter frustration with season 5B. I don't remember enough of season 5A at this point. I probably felt the same way, but but hey, that was October. It just
we also get what I think is probably the most brilliant line in this entire series. When the Colonel tries to kill God, and Lucifer takes her out, and everyone in the Sting's ambushed, and Chloe's like, "What did you do?" And he says, "I prevented G.I. Jane here from pulling a Nietzsche."
That's a great. See, there's brilliant one-liners, but sometimes the overall writing of a character, I think, is, I use the word hackneyed. It's just a bit overwrought, I think. Anything else about? Go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, no, finish it with Alexis, then I'll jump back in.
Anything else, Alexis?
I also agree with you guys about Trixie. We talk about the character evolution for so many of the characters on the show. We do not talk about Trixie that much. And if anyone has shown amazing growth, not only as a character, but just as an actress, it's that child act. Oh, my God, what is this kid's name?
Scarlett Estevez.
Scarlett Estevez. Somebody, okay, Hollywood executives, producers, whatever, give this kid more work. She is amazing. I want to see her in more things. We'll talk about, the scene that we're all thinking of later on when we get to it. But just, she was amazing. Hell, we didn't even talk about the fact that she gets a freaking solo in the musical episode. And it's it's a child singing, so yeah, it's not going to be on par with Dennis Haysbert and Tom. But she still was so good, and she nailed it.
Yeah, she did a pretty amazing job. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm just going to add on to that one. I'm totally on board with you guys. Scarlett Estevez and the way that she has acted this role and then it's been written for her is so on point. I mean, kids in shows like this can get really, really cloying in a lot of ways, just in terms of the writing and a little too cutesy. And she's got just that right level of attitude, right level of still being a kid, and it works really well. I gotta say, I really, really related to the some of the scenes in this one with, particularly, I think we were just talking about it, the hangar scene or the aircraft scene where my father is very much life of the party. There have been jokes made about how he has made friends off of airplane rides. And Dennis Haysbert is kind of that character in this scene. It's like, yeah, I totally get that.
All right, so this episode, the dream episode, essentially, Daniel Espinosa, Naked and Afraid. Dan has a bad day transporting a prisoner. Lucifer bonds with some gang members, and Amenadiel objects to being an Uber. Later, a standoff between Dan and his improv crew with the Russian mob. The Los Exes and Dan's old buddy turns violent. Maze jumps and saves Dan from getting shot. What happens later turns out to be a surprise. I'm going to go to you first on this one, Alexis. What did you think of this?
This was a very, very, very weird episode.
Yeah.
Still had some pretty funny parts. And as much as we praise all the actors and everyone in this show, I really want to know what casting director picked the guy to play Dan's old partner, because frankly, I think they found the human incarnate version of Slowpoke Rodriguez.
Wah, 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 wah.
Are we referring to the worst Mexican accent in 20 years?
The actor, I think, is Mexican. Wilmer Calderon, let's see here, Puerto Rico. He's Puerto Rican.
Yeah, but he was throwing out like the worst stereotype Mexican accent. It was...
I said Slowpoke Rodriguez, but let's just say it. He sounded like Speedy Gonzalez.
There we go.
Yeah, I could not wrap my head enough times around this guy. I was like, this is supposed to be real? Yeah, this whole movie, wow, I'm in the wrong brain. This whole episode was so surreal, so weird, but I think it's worth it for two bits at the end. The first, where Dan is talking to Maze, and he looks at her and says, wait, so you'd actually take a bullet for me? And she looks at him and goes, well, not in the chest. That was a really good scene, because, again, it shows how much those two have bonded. And then you get the bit where Lucifer is just gloating. I think he says that he spent like over $5 million on this prank and had to call, who knows how many favors he had to call in. He's like, but it was all worth it. But Dan realizes that he actually got a level of clarity from the prank. Mm-hmm. You know, it kind of just opened up a few things for him. And he thanks Lucifer, and Lucifer's like, I didn't do it for that. I did it because you shot me. Which, of course, is from the last half of the season, and they both share a drink. And I'm sorry, just the look on both their faces when they're just like, and we still hate each other.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, I think the way I've kind of described this episode, this is the best, worst episode of any TV show ever. It is so bizarre. If it doesn't end the way it does, then it's just kind of, it's all over the place. And I mean, it's almost a little meta as well, because I mean, they've kind of always made Dan the whipping boy of the show on some level. Like he's always been the one on the butt of jokes. And I think it didn't help that he also decided to
exploded. Yeah.
I was about to say, it didn't help that he also got exploded this season. And I think it's kind of, they did some wise casting there. I mean, I want to say it's Kevin Alejandro. Yeah, Kevin Alejandro, who plays Dan. I mean, he looks like a guy who should be a lead in any other cop TV show. So he's kind of there purposefully as a little bit of a juxtaposition to Lucifer and everything like that. But, it just goes a little too much into the comedy of errors. I mean, there are some golden parts in between, like Lucifer basically having a therapy session with everybody in the bike shop was pretty funny. That partner was so distracting, wasn't even funny. And then, the end line and delivery, it's because you fucking shot me, Daniel. But it was a little weird, and it especially seemed a lot weirder once you got to what happens in about 2 episodes.
Yeah. I think it was an important episode to have, in terms of what they're going to do with Dan later. Here's my one comment about this episode, and it kind of goes to the Netflix part of the series at large. While I have some complaints about the writing, I have talked about them. People, we've been doing this for a good half an hour now, and people have heard me say it. The one compliment that I will give them is they are not afraid to take chances. Being on Netflix has given them a level of bravery a level of creativity. It doesn't always work, but as anyone who's heard any one of my podcasts before, I am willing to forgive a miss because you took a chance. It was, the network stuff, the first 3 seasons of Fox Network Lucifer was solid, but I think we can all agree they didn't take a tremendous amount of chances. I think since they've been on Netflix, they can occasionally have like a weirdo episode like this one or the musical episode. They can kill a character and keep them dead, as we'll find out. Things like that, and that keeps me hooked. Because as much as there's some stuff that I roll my eyes at, and and to throw a shoe and all that, I will always come back because, well, okay, this didn't work for me, but so much of this other stuff has, and it's not something I'm seeing in other television shows. So, all right, show, you haven't quite lost me yet. Keep going. What else you got?
They're not afraid to take shots, too. Need I remind you, I can't remember which episode it comes up in, but there's a bit where they meet a suspect who says that she had a meeting with someone over at Fox, and Lucifer actually says, oh, well, good luck with that.
I did catch it. That was good.
Well, the self-referential, what's the word I'm looking for? The, Family Guy's been doing that forever, as has The Simpsons. Yeah, but it's on Fox. Crusty face.
Like, just remember, you got to watch it right after Shoving Buddies. And slowly rotating black man.
Is that really a show? No, someone's doing a bit.
See, I would prefer the line from the critic. You're watching Fox. Give us 5 minutes. We'll show you an ass.
That's an oldie but a goodie. All right. If we've got nothing else on the Dan Naked and Famous episode here, let me take a pause for the cause and pay some bills. I want to talk about Grammarly. Grammarly is used for writing. Yes, Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2Mnetwork. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2Mnetwork to download Grammarly for free. The link is in the description of this podcast above the AmazonMusic.com/W2Mnetwork link, which we'll talk about in a little while. Alrighty. So back to our usually scheduled program. A little harmless stalking. Okay. So I'm going to read through this, and then this is the one I slept through. Like, was barely conscious. One more time, Alexis.
I said, why am I not surprised?
Linda is seen following a car driven by, it is later revealed to be Adriana's, her daughter, given up for adoption. Lucifer decides to follow his gut feeling and not to overthink things and tells Chloe he loves her. Oh, I missed that. As they arrive to a murder scene of a Mr. Sterling, turns out Linda was arrested, having been found on the scene. Maze, Chloe, and Lucifer realize she is covering for someone else. Linda tells Lucifer and Chloe about her daughter, Adriana, and that she thinks her daughter shot Mr. Sterling. Later, Adriana gives herself up and confesses to the crime, even though her boyfriend Owen insists that she is not guilty. Investigation points at Adriana having been in some shady business dealings with an art trader, Jamie, and her muscle, Clive. Maze tracks Clive to his house, where she fights a rival bounty hunter who turns out to be Eve. Okay, this I was awake for. This I remember. She is still trying to find herself and tries to recreate the time she felt most happy with Maze. They both track Clive to a warehouse where they find the contents of the safe and the murder weapon. Clive ambushes them in the fight. Eve gets shot. Since Adriana's prints were on the murder weapon, she becomes the main suspect, but Ella finds evidence suggesting she was framed. Linda deduces Owen framed Adriana and threatens him at gunpoint to turn himself in. However, Chloe and Lucifer talk her down. Later, Adriana visits Linda and reveals she knows Linda is her mother. Meanwhile, preparing to take over God's position, Amenadiel comes to the conclusion he isn't ready. Lucifer then declares he wants to be the new god, because of course he does. All right, so the only thing I'm going to say about this, and I'll pitch it over to you, Alexis, I'm glad Eve's back. I love Eve. She's one of my favorite characters in this. I was sad that when she took off, and she's about the only thing that makes Maze interesting this season. Go.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give you that. Eve was a fun character. Although I am glad that she's in more of a limited capacity, because when she was all over Lucifer in various episodes, she did kind of get annoying. She is very bubbly, happy, bouncy, and that kind of, it's fun and a great contrast to Lucifer, but after a while, it's just like, okay, either dial down the perkiness or go spend an episode somewhere else so we can just have a break from you.
Yeah.
So this works. Her with Maze works so much better than her with Lucifer. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting, the scene where Eve gets shot. It's done in a very bizarre but very interesting way. They pull off the flash grenade, which was a cute little moment because Eve had brought that, and Mace is like, we're not going to use that. But lo and behold, they did. And the scene is shot, at first it looks like it's shot from Eve's perspective, like she was temporarily blinded by the flash grenade too. But then it just kind of changes perspective, and it's like, so wait, did the camera just get, like, blinded by the flash grenade? What's going on? It's a little bizarre, a little abstract, but I think it works. I do love Amenadiel trying to do research to become God. The fact that we see him having an interview with a rabbi, a priest, and, well, okay, I'm going to admit stupidity here. It was a rabbi and a priest, but I could not catch quick enough with who the third person was, or what denomination they were representing.
I believe he was a Muslim.
May have been. I just didn't look quick enough to get a good look at their outfit. So, but still, just something like that he's actually taking notes and discussing with religious authorities about what they want from God. They ask Ella, who he knows is like the most religious person on the show, who she is. She's a very devout Christian. And he goes, well, what would you expect from God? But I kind of like that he just sort of comes to the realization that he likes staying on Earth. He's like, it's like, I have a family. I have Linda. I have Charlie. I don't want to leave that. And you kind of get the idea that Lucifer wants to be God. Basically says he wants to be God not only for his ego, and as we find out later, for Chloe, but part of him, I think, actually also comes to the realization, it's like, well, if Amenadiel's not going to do it, because I have a sneaking suspicion if Amenadiel hadn't withdrawn, Lucifer would give him his full support.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I will tell you that I think it was very clear that Lucifer, or becomes clear over the next couple of episodes, that he's doing this one. Lucifer is psychologically a pretty messed up entity. I think that goes without saying, but what I mean by that is Lucifer has these ego issues. They are covered over in substances and other, personality disordered quirkiness. The kind of quirkiness you can get away with on television but doesn't work out very well in real life when you're that personality disordered. But I think more to the point, Lucifer feels perpetually like he doesn't measure up. I almost went with the word inept, but that's not the right word. Inadequate.
Inadequate?
Yeah, inadequate. Yeah. He feels perpetually inadequate, and he has, like all good network male leads do, put the female lead on a pedestal, and doesn't believe that he is worthy of Chloe. And that, so the desire to be God is twofold. One, if he's God, is there anything better that you can be? He has to then be worthy of the goddess Chloe. Two, I think he sees, and this is a running theme throughout the show, because we're going to see this with Maze and Eve also, characters really struggling with the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer goes, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. And boy, are there a lot of characters who think that they can and should exercise change over things. It is a running, constant theme over 5 seasons of this show. Lucifer looks at the job God has done and says, I can do it better. I will be more hands-on God, which is generally always the first mistake you make in wanting to be God, Andrew.
Agreed, and I think that really does go to his, we're getting into kind of the end game of this part of the season, and that's really where we get into Amenadiel and Lucifer trying to figure out why they both want to be God. I mean, on some level, I think Lucifer, like you said, it's about his worthiness. I think it's about his own personal redemption. With Amenadiel, it's the oldest son trying to take over the family business in a lot of ways.
I was going to say it's an obligation.
Yep. I'll just quickly hit this episode. I think kind of, the things that worked for me on this one was probably towards the end between Adriana reuniting with Linda and then the scene at the end between Maze and Eve. I think both hit the right notes. The rest of the episode doesn't do a lot for me in terms of the various ins and outs of it.
I do love the bit where Lucifer and Linda basically plays a couple who are buying art, and he ends up buying,
yes.
Which I admit, actually, I liked that piece. I thought that painting was cool. And he comes out and it's wrapped and he gives it to Chloe. And she's like, "Oh, it's my first, gift from a sting. How cute!" And that seems just like, oh my god, that's adorable. I honestly thought he was going to hang that painting up in Lux, but the fact that he gives it to Chloe is so adorable.
Episode 14 of this season, Nothing Lasts Forever. No, it certainly does not. With God announcing his retirement, Lucifer contemplates the idea of becoming the new god in his place, while Michael begins building support in heaven for his own attempt at taking over. Yes, Michael is back. Ramiel later visits Lucifer and offers to spy for him, hating the idea of Michael being in charge more than she hates Lucifer. Chloe investigates a murder at an aquarium of the dead. No, that's a different thing. While Ella unknowingly meets God, who soothes Ella's fears about her own goodness. Amenadiel and God bond over a game of golf, like you do, and Amenadiel realizes that Michael has been manipulating their father in order to cause his retirement. To make God's retirement better, Lucifer sends Gabriel to contact Goddess, who returns from her own universe and reconciles with God. Woohoo! She's back! Mom's back! She was great! Despite the revelation that Michael is responsible for his power instability, God nevertheless decides to retire and leave it up to the angels to choose his successor. Finally expressing his love for and pride in Lucifer, God departs with Goddess for her universe, intending to spend the rest of his eternal life enjoying the universe that his wife created after Lucifer sent her into the void. Unbeknownst to Lucifer, Gabriel was also working for Michael, and she recovers the two pieces of the flaming sword that Lucifer had sent into Goddess's universe for Michael, who intends to restore the flaming sword for his own use, and Michael's mission to take power for himself. We're getting a little silly here, Andrew. Getting a little silly, a little MacGuffin-y, a little video gamey. I don't know. I think on the one hand, first of all, I don't love Michael as a character. I think the height of villains for the Lucifer show in Totem was Cain.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's gotten any better than that. And I think they're trying with Michael. They're trying to make him a thing. This is Vince McMahon in the early days of Roman Reigns. We're really trying to push this guy. We're making him a thing. And I'm like, no, sir. I don't like it. And I think, God bless Tom Ellis for playing both parts and everything. And, no knock on his acting. I just don't love the character. And I don't, and both of them competing for, to be God and sort of these political machinations. And I'm a guy who loves politics, but this was a little too Julius Caesar for me. And not the good kind of Julius Caesar. It just, I don't know. Like I said, it's getting a little silly. Getting a little hackneyed. I will say the strength of this episode, though, was God leaving with Goddess and the whole reunification. It was good to see that actress again, that character. And I was kind of sad to see Dennis Haysbert go. I was enjoying him on the show. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably enjoyed this episode more than the last one. I definitely got it. I mean, how can you not enjoy, Angels and Hot Dogs?
Sure.
Doing the barbecue at the front.
That opening scene in the park still slays me, and I love it. Mandiel's like pointing out that none of them are in disguise; they're flaunting their wings open. And Lucifer's like, "It's L.A., no one's going to notice." And I will just go ahead and say it: if I had come across that, I would just assume it's a bunch of cosplayers enjoying a picnic.
So you've seen the original?
Say, given the quality.
I'm sorry, you've seen the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, right? But guys, both of you.
Of
Oh, yeah.
course.
They, one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles flies across the cab, and the guy in the back seat goes, "What was that?" And the cab driver says, "It was a 6 for turtle. So you're going to Broadway, right?" Or something along those lines. Yes, New York and L.A. not easily impressed.
I mean, I got kind of a kick out of some of the characters. I mean, I thought particularly. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this before. I was actually raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, and it's like seeing Gabriel as the gossip is kind of a fun spin on that one.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I don't mean to get too incredibly personal, but almost everybody I know who was raised under the Catholic faith gets to be an adult and turns away from the faith. Did you end up keeping it, or are you one of the people like, this was fine for when I was a kid, but not so much as an adult?
I'm pretty healthily lapsed at this point.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I've not been to a Catholic church in actually probably 4 or 5 years at least. But anyway. And that was only for a wedding. So anyway, but yeah, I think I'm definitely in the large category of lapsed Catholics. So
you're not alone. My parents are both former Catholics, and I'm Episcopalian, Catholic light. And it's been a while since I've been to church.
It is a funny thing. I mean, and the show does deal with religion, so I think this does somewhat play into the conversation. But there was. I have found in my personal experience, and maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't have exact data to back it up. That people who are raised pretty strictly religious tend to fall away from it as adults, but people who are raised non-religious or with very little religion tend to find it in adulthood. It's a very weird converse relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I should put something in context here as well, in terms that when I say I went to Catholic school, that's just an option in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Like 40% of the population's Catholic, so no matter what city you go into, there's what you call a public and they call it the separate school board.
Mm-hmm.
So you still do that. I mean, my daughter's in Catholic school. It's part of just depending on where you go, you're probably going to get a little bit better quality of school on the Catholic side than the public side for some reason. I'm not sure why, but
the Catholic schools make you do church as a part of that? Because I know that's a thing in the U.S. where if you're going to put your kid in Catholic school, y'all are participating in church.
She does go. We occasionally get reminders to be guilted into going back to church. I mean, I'm glad we made that decision. I'm not quite. I think we're kind of trying to figure out how we want to do that, because both neither myself or my wife are particularly religious anymore, and it's like, you're supposed to raise your children in the faith, and it's like they're not even. Well, actually, Logan's not even baptized. Annabelle's baptized under the United Church of Canada.
But real quick aside, a couple of years ago, my wife got a wild hair up her ass and decided that we were also going to celebrate the Jewish faith, and I went, which is Hebrew for what? And yeah, I mean, like. We've done a Passover. We've done a couple of Hanukkahs. We will attempt to read the prayer as best we can, considering I don't know Hebrew at all, and I was never bar mitzvahed, which is why all the Jewish cracks amongst our gang of friends always kind of makes me giggle, because it's like, as much as I am Jewish, quote unquote, no, I'm not. It's about as Jewish as Alexis is.
And parents are former Catholics.
Exactly. Anyway, moving on. You were saying, Andrew. I'm sorry, I cut you off and went way off on a tangent.
I can't even remember where I ended up on that one, but
you would start
pick a point and go.
Gabriel as the angel of gossip.
Yeah, some of those portrayals I think are just kind of get a gag out of, and some of the ways that they play with some of the elements of the religion and things like that. I mean, I'm still surprised, and I'm betting they're probably doing this just not to piss anybody off. I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten cracks about Jesus at this point in the show.
I'm sure it's come up, and someone's like, maybe when we don't have to worry about getting canceled anymore.
Exactly.
There was actually 2 Jesus jokes in the family dinner episode. The first is when Linda offers God a drink, she goes, water, wine, all the same to you.
That one I did catch. That was good.
And the second one is when Lucifer shows up for the dinner, and he brought dessert and said, "I brought a souffle, perfectly risen, just like you like."
Yeah. And
Those are good illusions. I'm kind of surprised they haven't had a conversation about what Jesus is actually like.
And I think you can get away with a crack. When Jesus actually shows up as a character and gets involved, they need to be on their way out. It needs to not matter anymore.
Yeah, I think they're going more for the Barris of the Judeo-Christian storyline for the angels. Because let's face it, Jesus would have to be Lucifer's brother.
Exactly.
And I don't. As much fun as they have and as ballsy as Netflix is, I don't think anyone over there actually has the cojones to say, "Yeah, let's have Jesus come in and it's Lucifer's brother." I don't think they just we are so not risking the Catholic League coming after us with torches and pitchforks.
Oh, we're more than all ready for a fight with the Catholic League at this point, but we're not getting into that one right now. A quick fun note just on that whole element on how they kind of treat some of these characters. And for the life of me, I can't remember the exact term. I think it's called the paradigm shift. So when you look at theology, there's a point in which there's a paradigm shift around how people associate, gods, deities, things like that. When you go to the Romans and the Greeks and the Norse and the Germans and everything like that, gods were among us and above us.
Yeah.
And they were like us. They drank, they slept, they ate. The Roman gods did a lot of other stuff, and the Greek gods did a lot of other stuff. But they were superior versions of what humanity was. And at some point, it became this paradigm shift, and that's where gods went from being among us to being above us. And then that's where we get kind of the current, I guess, kind of the later Judeo-Christian and also Muslim theologies in terms of, gods elsewhere affecting things that take place on Earth and things like that, as opposed to the old paradigm where God was actually here and actually did things. Like you can actually see parts of that in the Old Testament versus the New Testament, where there's actually references in the Old Testament to God walking places.
Okay.
And that was entirely too academic, but anyway.
I mean, it's good information. I just don't have anything to follow it up with.
Yeah, where were we on this? Okay, I'm going to finish this one up. Strong point to this episode, God talking to Ella, I thought was really, really good. I enjoyed the golf game between God and Amenadiel, and then the kind of the reconciliation, the return of Tricia Helfer as the goddess, and then those two riding off into the pocket dimension sunset.
Alexis, anything else about this episode?
I really enjoyed that we got to see some of the other angels. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't want to do it where every angel gets their episode or any, because obviously it's going to be too many. But for so long, we've always heard about how even if you are not, a practicing Christian or anything, I'm sure that there's a decent amount of angels, listed in the texts. And I love the idea of finally getting to see some of them. And yeah, the idea of Gabriel, she's like, it's the angel of messages, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. But still seeing stuff like that, and it's going to sound weird, but I do like how so many of the actors playing the angels all look different. Different ethnicities, different body types, just a very nice random assortment. I don't know why, but I really, really like that.
Okay. Second to last episode here. Is this really how it's going to end? Lucifer is trying to convince his brothers and sisters that he's the best for the job of being God, but most of them remain unconvinced. Chloe turns in her resignation, upsetting Ella, as she wants to be Lucifer's consultant once he becomes God. Amenadiel tells Dan he would like to become a police officer, which Dan does not think is a good idea. A mysterious string of murders are occurring, all tied to a scheming lab technician who stole dead people's belongings and had a psychic lead the relatives to the items as part of a scam. When they track down the fence to whom the tech sold the remaining items, Lucifer is surprised to find out the man has superhuman strength. Tracking the trail of people who might have bought items from the fence, Dan gets captured by French mercenaries who kidnap him and torture him for information. He escapes briefly, but is shot fatally, revealing to Chloe before dying to look for Caleb. Amenadiel realizes that the killers were hired by Michael looking for his necklace, which is part of the flaming sword, and which he buried with Caleb, the kid whom he befriended in Season 4. Lucifer says the necklace would only give someone power if the sword is back on Earth, and realizes Michael conspired with Gabriel to bring the sword from Goddess's universe. Chloe is upset when Lucifer tells her he wanted to become God to finally feel worthy of her, telling him he should have known her feelings for him. After tracking down and killing the mercenaries with Maze, Lucifer learns from Amenadiel that Dan is not in heaven, causing him to decide he wants to be God so he can fix the system and make it fair. Was it this episode where we deal with where we have Dan's funeral?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think it's the start of the next one.
It's the start of the next one? Okay. Well, certainly Dan being shot was upsetting, to say the least. I'd come to like Dan as a character. You know, they had made him not just an antagonist for Lucifer or the butt of a joke for Lucifer, but a real person. He had come such a long way from the season where he's sleeping with Goddess to now, and while I give them credit for killing a character, like him, it was hard to see him go, and then we'll talk about his funeral in the next episode, which broke my heart. Is it this episode where the kid has the breakdown in the hospital?
Yes.
It was in this episode, guys. I'm sorry, it was, and it was Trixie's breakdown. That all happened in this episode.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna say this: if you didn't cry once either during the funeral scene or during Trixie's breakdown, then much like Maze, you have no soul.
No, I'll tell you right now. We'll deal with Trixie's breakdown first. Not to get into anything tremendously personal, just know that I have a lot of difficulties, I should say, with the idea of a parent losing a child or a child losing a parent. For as much action and murder as I've seen on screen, when it's a personal thing like that, I struggle with it even more. And so Trixie's breakdown in the hospital where she's like, tell him to wake up and all of that, yeah, it broke my heart. And then, yes, I absolutely cried, ugly cried throughout the entire. It's so funny because like my wife will ask me like, why do I watch stuff that upsets me? I'm like, it's, you know, as I've said before, it's good to have it's good to be in touch with your emotions, good, bad, or indifferent. Emotions don't always just have to be one thing, you know, one good thing. So with that being said, the whole funeral was heartbreaking. We were talking before, but kind of waiting all episode to talk about this. We talked about Tom Ellis' singing, and here, when him and Ella are duetting at the funeral, was the best singing I've seen him do all series. It was phenomenal. It knocked it out of the park, and it really it added to the emotion of the whole thing. So that's what I have to say. How about you, Alexis?
I was kind of surprised that they killed Dan off. I am, however, just going to say it. For all of the Supernatural fans who watch a show, I'm officially giving this the subtitle, Damn It, Chuck.
Okay.
The actor who plays, oh my God, what's this actor? I know the actor's name. I'm trying to remember what his character. The bad guy who shoots, Vincent LeMec. He's the bad guy who shoots Dan. Has been a couple other shows reviewed. He was in Birds of Prey. I don't know if you remember that or not. But probably one of his most prolific roles was in Supernatural, where he played a writer who is later revealed to be God.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of fans were not crazy about that. So when I saw that he was the one who shot Dan, I actually shouted, "Damn it, Chuck!"
Okay.
So I just had to give that little shout out there to my fellow Supernatural fans. This episode was so ridiculously depressing. Like I said, I ugly cried when Trixie came in. That just haunted me so much. And the revelation that something about the way people end up in hell in this universe is very, I don't know if perplexing is the word, but the idea that it is not necessarily the sins that force you to hell. It is how you feel about the sins. So I guess if somebody has committed truly evil acts, but they never once feel guilty for those acts, if they truly believe they have done the right thing, or they're just incapable of feeling guilt because, they're just that mentally ill, they would not go to hell. It is your guilt that sends you to hell. It is your guilt over things you have done. And that's so bizarre to think about, because how many of us feel guilty over the most minor things? How much do we worry that when we finally leave the earth, we're going to leave unfinished, that we're going to wonder how many, it's like how much did we screw up to the point that we made other people miserable? It's just something very weird to wrap your brain around, that something like that is what puts a person in hell. And that Dan, he screwed up, but he is clearly a wonderful man, a good cop, a great father, a very good friend, but he goes to hell.
It felt very forced, I'm going to be honest. I feel like Dan going to hell was a thing that needed to happen to move the plot forward and to give Lucifer more motivation to do what he's doing. I don't think it'll... They explain it away just fine. I still don't think it makes it... It feels convoluted. I don't know if not making sense is the right phrase to describe it particularly, but it does feel like they were like, okay, we have C, we have A, we need B. Well, what if B is he goes to hell? Well, it doesn't make any sense. Does it really matter at this point?
Yeah, and I think, my wife and I have a lot of conversations about kind of the concept, the mechanics of hell in this show. And she was also raised Catholic, and, any jokes you have about Catholic guilt aside, I think we actually kind of found that concept of... it doesn't work in all situations, and I'm sure there's cases where Lucifer just says, nope, you're coming down here. But on the flip side, I think on a more regular basis, I think maybe it's just more of the subtext of the show, and maybe a little bit of the way that Gaiman kind of writes a lot of this stuff is that, and the way that Lucifer is positioned as a character is that your own guilt is your own trap. And it's saying that the more you can let go of that guilt, the better it can be, especially if you are a good person. And I think, one of the things that I think, if we talk about, I made the comment about Dan being the whipping boy, a lot of that was because he tortured himself in an unneeded way for the last part of the season. So, does it shock me that he ends up putting himself in hell? Not really, unfortunately.
I do want to posit one question. We see Maze and Lucifer take their vengeance out on the shooters and who took out Dan, the fences the guys who were running this league. He gets to Vincent Lemech, who the man who specifically shot Dan, and he leans in and whispers something, and Vincent falls to his knees, sobbing and pleading. But we never find out what was said to him.
He whispered, "You are not worthy," and so then he dropped the hammer. Glad you laughed. I'm glad someone got that joke.
My theory on that one, and actually I can't even take credit to it was Alicia's, is, and it's something that we haven't dealt with a lot in this show because all the cast is kind of aware of those celestial beings. But I think it was one of those moments where it was almost out of the first season where, Lucifer revealed himself to be the devil, whispered in his ear, "The devil is real, and you're going to hell." Because you have to remember early on in the season, and maybe they didn't do a great job of resetting this up, but when somebody is revealed or becomes aware of somebody's, celestial ability, they kind of have a breakdown for a few days. And I think that's what happened there.
You think he was able to essentially just sort of say something that was enough to prove to him that he was real, that he was...
Yeah. what used to be just seeing the red eyes was enough to drive somebody into a fit.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, just something about that scene. I mean, it was well done, especially as they shot it with Lucifer and Ellis singing in the background. But yeah, I just was kind of racking my brains, like, I wonder what he said. Just suddenly finding myself, it's like, okay, I'm at the end of that one Scarlett Johansson movie, Lost in Translation.
Anything else about this episode, Andrew?
Sorry, I left myself on mute there for a second. I think we basically covered it all. I think, when we get the kind of the reoriented version of why Lucifer wants to become God, I think that makes perfect sense with his character. Mm-hmm. I think he sees somebody who's been treated unfairly. I think on some level he definitely sees humanity as being treated unfairly, and that, when you go back to the theory of his character of what do you desire, he wants people to be able to go on that without having to suffer for it. And that becoming his reason to become God makes perfect sense.
Agreed. I just I'll say this now. I think and obviously the writers are sort of having fun with this idea, but the idea of Lucifer being God is absolutely horrifying for all kinds of reasons. But I guess that's the fun of what's going to be season 6, right? All right. So I kind of wish this season had just ended here, because this next episode, oh yeah. This was. I won't use the phrase from earlier. Alexis kind of pinched me and said, "You're using that phrase too often." So I will come up with a different way of saying this. But it definitely felt like the writers got to where they needed to be in the season, and then we're like, "Okay, but we still have this We still have to resolve the situation with Michael and Lucifer," and they just went, I don't know, let's just have them fight. People like action, right? People like fist fighting and, action stuff, and we'll just write that in there. We'll have a big confrontation. I don't want to sound like I hated this season, because there's a lot to love about this season, and I did enjoy a lot of it. But there were definitely moments where I was just like, ugh, you guys have run out of ideas. And this last episode was, for me, it didn't work. The fake out killing Chloe, I can believe you would kill Dan. I can believe you would kill Maze. I can believe you would kill Linda. I would believe you would kill Amenadiel. You're not killing the main female lead. Shut the fuck up. There was no way I was going to buy that. Number one. Number two, this, final violent confrontation between the angels on Michael's side and Lucifer, and this whatever cockamamie plan they had to bring demons up from hell to fight on Lucifer's side. Folks, not to be South Park or anything, but Marvel already did this. It was called Avengers Endgame. Captain America yelled out Avengers Assemble, and we had two armies of villains and heroes that we were invested in running at each other. We're good now. Thanks. Unless you're gonna put that much time and effort into into leading up to that moment, just stop. And maybe that's harsh, and maybe you guys are like, it seemed fine to me, but I don't know. I looked at this and I was like, man, stop watching Marvel movies and taking their ideas and doing them badly. Andrew, I'll give you that's kind of. Let me add this. And so that way I've got my final words out of here. As I said before, not only do I wish the previous episode had been it for this season, I kind of wish this was it for the show. But we're going to get a wrap-up. We're going to get a final 10 episodes sometime in the near future, wrapping up the whole thing. The sooner the better. I have liked the show. There's a lot to like about it, but it needs to stop. Go ahead.
I think I probably like this ending episode a little bit better than you did. I mean, it was definitely the most action the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum has seen since the NFL left town. Get it, king. But I mean, it works well enough. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think a couple of the special effects heavy scenes were actually, I think, a little better than what I was expecting once they sprouted wings and started fighting in the air. Yeah, I mean, the Chloe thing was definitely a fake out. It was. I did kind of like the scene that they injected in there with her sitting with her father in heaven. I did like the fact they brought Lee Garner back as kind of the recurring character. I'm wondering if they're going to bring him back for the start of season 6, since he's been in every season premiere since I think 2. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it resolved a little differently than I thought. I kind of thought, since they said it has to be, by unanimous choice. I thought it was maybe going to end up with everybody looking over at Azrael, who I was really happy to have her come back, and we need more of her in the last season. Is actually choose her to be God, as being kind of the one person in this entire family that doesn't have an agenda.
That would have been nice.
But I mean, yeah, it was a good enough finale. I think it worked well enough in terms of the setups and everything like that. I mean, it does definitely set up to see an interesting, season 6. I'm glad they are keeping it shorter. I don't think 16 episodes would have done the job here, and I definitely think pushing 20 would have been way too many.
Anything else about the show in general this season? Because if not, I'm going to go to Alexis, and then we're going to start to bug on out of here.
Yeah, I think I've said everything. I mean, solid second half of the season. The show's definitely getting a little long in the tooth. I'm looking forward to see how they wrap it up.
Take me home, baby doll. That means you, Alexis.
Don't ever call me that again.
Don't ever call me that the first time.
Damn Skippy. I love this show. I was so happy to have it back. I know that they had to stretch out the last season because getting the 6th season filmed was obviously going to get delayed because of, the world ending last year. But I really liked, I did enjoy how this went. Yeah, there were a couple of times I felt the writers were kind of kicking their heels and just sort of, staring at the ground going, so what do we do now? But I enjoyed most of it. I really love this final episode, just the brief scene we get of heaven. And the way Chloe is kind of acting like it's in a dream. Though when Lucifer shows up and she's like, oh, that's right, the battle. I'm sitting there going, that's exactly how you would act in a dream if, someone came to you and was like, oh, yeah, that's right, I was supposed to go to work. Or, oh, yeah, that's right, I have a kid. Or something like that. And I just kind of like how they played that. The fact that she got to see her father again made me really happy. And that he was okay with her going back. Although he's like, I'll be here I'll be waiting when you get here, kid. It's fine. That was such a really wonderful scene. I love that she got that moment with him. I love Lucifer's little line about Michael's costume. What was it? It's like, what is this? Winter is coming? It was a really great bit. The bit where, Maze and Eve lead the demons into the stadium, and Eve's like, God, that's so hot. And Maze goes, not now, but maybe later. Again, it was very cute. I really do like those two together, and I hope we get to see more of them in the 6th season. Again, there were a few parts where we're all going, but I still love this show. Still one of my favorites. I'm still so glad, Mark, that you asked me to start reviewing it, so I had an excuse to finally sit down and watch it. I can't wait for the 6th season to come on. All
right. And that wraps up our review of Lucifer Season 5B, Season 5 Bravo. Before we go, I want to remind everybody, I alluded to it earlier, that we have a deal running with AmazonMusic.com. That if you click our link here in the description of the podcast, wherever you happen to be listening to it, fill out the information. You get a free 30 days of Amazon Music. You can stream all the Squirrel Nut Zippers you want, all the Brian Setzer Orchestra, all the swing music that we talked about, that I'm going to make Alexis come on the Metal Hammer of Doom to talk about at some point, in the afterlife, right? So if you're into all those bands, or if you're into any of the other stuff that we talk about here, like good old Bongzilla and Dr. Colossus and Saliva, go ahead and click our link. Andrew, what are you listening to these days? What are your top 2 or 3 musical acts that you've got going on in the car when you drive around?
What am I listening to these days? I've been listening to quite a bit of the Who band during workouts.
Mm-hmm.
What have I added on here lately? I've been getting into some of the older Foo Fighters stuff.
They have a new album out. Have you heard it?
Yes, I have. I actually finally got it. My wife makes fun of me. I am actually still a person who buys CDs on occasion and then puts them onto back onto my my computer. But yeah, definitely the Who band. I think you've heard of them. They're probably the Mongolian metal band. They also did a really great
God, you are the second person this week to say the Who, and I'm thinking the British band, and you're like, no, the Mongolians.
Yeah, the Mongolians. They also did a really great song for Jedi Fallen Order, which is a great game if you get a chance to play it.
That's strictly on the PlayStation, or is that on PlayStation and Xbox?
That's on Xbox too.
It is? Okay. My son's haunting me for an Xbox from Santa Claus for Christmas, and so it's like, well, which one do the Star Wars games on? Gotta somehow justify this.
I think they're split between both. I think Star Wars is going to everybody.
Okay, cool. That makes it a little bit easier to get them an Xbox then. All right. So, yep, we got the Amazon plug out there. Click the link, amazonmusic.com/W2M Network for your free 30 days of Amazon Music. Today was a very busy day. We had an interview with Glenn Miller of the Zombies trilogy. He came on. He talked to me and Jason for a while. God, he talked. I don't know if you guys have gotten a chance to listen to the interview yet. He talked about getting a shooting schedule from the Asylum for Aquarium of the Dead, which was like 6 days. Can you imagine? I don't even think they had like a finished script at that point. From what he was saying, like it's so bizarre. But he was a lot of fun to talk to, and we've already got our Christmas review planned. We're gonna do Santa Claus. Which, that was the first words out of my mouth, and he went, "We must never speak of the Santa Claus again." And I'm like, fantastic. Alexis Hejna came on today to talk the Patton Oswalt, Jordan Bloom comic, MODOK Head Games. And yesterday, we had the re-airing of Disney Villains Part 2 for Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, plus myself and Robert Winfrey did alternative commentary for Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul. Did you see the fight at all? You see any highlights, Andrew?
The best comment that I saw is that somebody online said I streamed the whole thing and I still want a refund.
Wah, wah, wah.
I've been listening to the commentary and it's like, no, I wasn't going to spend money on it. I'm glad I didn't.
My favorite comment was there was somebody wrote an article about the fact that Logan Paul walked into the ring with a very rare Pokemon Charizard card made into a necklace around his neck. And somebody in the comment wrote, "Great, now I have to hate Pokemon."
Tomorrow, myself and Alexis Hejna will be reviewing Marvel's MODOK on Hulu. And then I thought I was getting a night off, but as I said before, my son, he's a cruel mistress. He's getting me to do an alternative commentary for Ready Player One. Apparently, he ran into this thing through some such YouTube channel he was watching, and he was like, "Have you heard of this movie, Ready Player One?" I'm like, "Yes, Jonas, heard it, reviewed it, forgot about it." He's like, "Well, I haven't because I'm 7. I'm like, "Good point." So we'll sit and watch it together for the first time, for the last time, and then we'll talk about it.
Solid movie.
It is. Loki comes out Wednesday, September 9th. Alexis and I will be dropping a review of Loki, the God Who Fell to Earth, in conjunction with the first episode of Loki on Disney+. And then in the evening time, Robert Winfrey will be stepping in for Jesse Starcher, who stepped in for Robert Cooper many, many years ago on the Metal Hammer of Doom, and has not left since. We will be talking the Simpson-inspired doom metal band, Dr. Colossus. All right, here we go. I get to do it again. Ready? Ready? I'm a stupid moron with an ugly face and a big butt, and my butt smells, and I like to kiss my own butt, is the name of the album.
Eventually one of these days, after saying all this, you're just going to turn on Disney Plus and you're going to start binging The Simpsons, and they're going to get to that Treehouse of Horror, and you're going to hear that, and something will finally snap in your brain, and you are going to go insane with a sledgehammer and destroy half your house.
Speaking of destroying half my house, Alexis Hejna and Sean Comer will be joining me on Comic Strip tomorrow to discuss... Thursday. Chris Bailey. Thursday, June 10th at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Alexis and Sean will be joining me to do a comic strip. We haven't done one of those in a while. For the Judas Contract from the Teen Titans. We will watch the animated feature. We will read the book. And Sean and Alexis will talk about some such cartoon that they saw this done in some show or whatever that I haven't seen. So that'll be fine. And then finally on Friday, we'll have a re-airing of our review of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Since it's Pride Month all month long here, we will be reviewing the DC one-shot DC Pride #1. That'll be, once again, myself, Sean Comer, and Alexis Hejna. And then, provided everything works out as planned, myself and Pat Mullen will be reviewing the first half of Season 3 of Dark Side of the Ring, featuring the Ultimate Warrior, Dynamite Kid, Brian Pillman, Grizzly Smith and the family, including Jake Roberts, and the Collision in Korea, plus Deathmatch Mud Show wrestler Nick Gage. Last week, we did a whole bunch of stuff Disney-related for Cruella. We reviewed that movie, as well as A Quiet Place 2, Mickey's Inferno, the first half of the Disney villains, Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, AEW Double or Nothing. My kids did a commentary for the animated 101 Dalmatians, plus a re-airing of the Expendables 3 review, and some such thing Jesse did on Colonel Jim Sanders, an inker for a previous What If issue that he had reviewed. Andrew, are you getting? Are you finally out of the lockdown in Canada? Are you allowed out of your house? Has Justin Trudeau taken the snipers off the roof to make sure no one leaves their house?
Justin Trudeau actually doesn't have anything to do with restrictions at all. That's all on a provincial level. So Alberta is currently still under restrictions. So no gyms are quite open yet. I am still training at Havoc JKD and Esteemed Martial Arts here in Calgary via online means. You can find them on Facebook or on all your major social medias platforms. You can also find my instructor, Jay Cooper, with his own podcast on your major platforms called The Baying of the Hound. If you ever want some really quality martial arts discussion, I cannot recommend that highly enough.
Did he listen to our episode of Roberto Duran?
Yes, I did. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Did he listen to it?
I don't know if he has or not yet. I think I do need to reshare it with him, though.
Yes.
I know he very much enjoyed the heavyweight series in its entirety.
Well, you tell him to get on the stick and listen to the Roberto Duran episode, and also inform him that Roberto Duran once knocked out a horse.
I always heard it was a bear, but anyway.
A horse, a bear, a horse of a different color. Doesn't really matter. He knocked out a large animal. Roberto Duran.
For
anyway.
sure. Thoroughly enjoyed that series.
The next one will be on June 22nd, and it'll be on Marvelous Marvin Hagler, who recently passed away, unfortunately. All right, Alexis Hejna, formerly known as Baby Doll, but not anymore because she's a big, strong woman who don't need no man, and shut the fuck up, Mark. Instead, go ahead and do your plugs.
Oh, no, I just don't want you to call me that because I really don't need anyone to be further reminded of Zack Snyder's Sucker Punch.
Nice deep cut there, lady.
That is an on-trial candidate if I've ever heard of one.
Yeah, No, we're going to do that as a comic strip. I'm going to make Alexis do that one.
It wasn't. It was entirely Zack Snyder's original idea.
Okay, so am I confusing that with Tank Girl then?
Yes.
Okay, Sucker Punch, not a comic.
No, Sucker Punch was the delusional, perverted fantasies of a man who's too obsessed with slow-mo.
I will make it a point to get that on the calendar at some point.
Yeah, no, Andrew's right. You need to do an on trial for that one.
Sounds great. Can't wait.
All right. Which plug do you want me to do first? Stripped Up Trivia or Honeysuckle Rose Creations?
All of them at once.
I'm not that talented. Okay, firstly, yes, Tripped Up Trivia. We're getting ready to, I don't want to say film, getting ready to record our next episode big shout out to MCU's Bleeding Edge, which I guested on last week discussing Iron Man, the very first Marvel movie, because a handful of their panel members are going to be joining us for Crypto Trivia, which we're going to be discussing female superheroes. This is in honor of Black Widow coming out. So excited, and of course, remember that we are always looking for candidates for future games. In July, we are going to be discussing and asking trivia questions about Warner Brothers Animation, since we got the new Space Jam movie coming out. So if you want to be a contestant for the Radulich and Broadcasting's only trivia show, go ahead and hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. And as far as Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic, our stores are fully stocked on Etsy and handmade at Amazon, including our Lucifer charm bracelet, which I had so much fun designing. Among the charms on there are Chloe's police badge, the license plate for Lucifer's car, Fallen One, Maze's demon knife, Eve's appletini, among others. This was one of my favorite ones that I've designed. So happy I got it up on the shop. And of course, we will be getting back on the road soon. The conventions are finally opening up. We here at Honeysuckle Rose Creations are fully vaccinated. We will be showing at KC Crypticon, a horror-themed show here in Kansas City. So happy to be going back to work. We're getting ready for that. We're getting ready for MegaCon down in Orlando, which, yes, Mark, I will finally get to see you in person. Woo-hoo. And I'm sure that the rest of the staff will be sending me messages about where to punch and or kick you on their behalf. You're just going to show up. I'm going to give you a hug. And I'm like, okay, so this is from Robert, slug. This is from Andrew, kick. This one's from Jesse.
I just want to give Mark a high five.
Yeah,
oh,
see?
You want to give a high five? Okay. But yeah, so happy to be getting on the road soon. So happy that the lockdown is over and we can finally start working the conventions again. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And again, our shops are fully stocked on Etsy and handmade at Amazon. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
Alrighty, that brings us to the very end of our podcast. I want to thank Andrew and Alexis for joining me tonight. Sorry Dave couldn't make it. Things just don't work. Sometimes just don't work out that way. Until the next one, thank you for joining us. Be well, be safe, and behave.